Research now shows that your brain has tremendous power over your health.
The scientific data proves that your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings affect the physiology of your body more profoundly than you may realize.
Join physician Dr. Lissa Rankin as she teaches scientifically proven techniques to train your mind to heal your body.
I'm going to show you how you can make your own diagnosis, write your own prescription, and optimize your chance of being cured from any health conditions that might plague you.
Learn how to enhance your opportunity for great health, alleviate chronic conditions, and prevent long-term illness.
You're going to actually learn how to cultivate a brain that creates healing.
Next, watch Heal Yourself, Mind Over Medicine with Lissa Rankin, MD. Trained as an OBGYN, Dr. Lissa Rankin is a New York Times best-selling author, speaker, and founder of the Whole Health Medicine Institute.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be bringing my work to public television, and I'm so excited to be here to help you shift how you think about your health so that you can make your body ripe for miracles. As a doctor, I always thought that to be healthy, you simply had to eat well, exercise, get enough sleep, take your vitamins, follow doctor's orders. But after 12 years of education and 10 years of medical practice, I took a job at an integrative medicine practice in Marin County near San Francisco, where most of my patients were health nuts, doing everything right. But some of them were sicker than ever. I was baffled. I mean, these folks drank their daily green juice, they ate a vegan diet, they worked out with personal trainers, took their vitamins, saw the best doctors, and optimized what Western medicine had to offer, and they were still ill. From everything I had learned in medical school, these people should have been in perfect health. But many of my patients felt tired, they weren't sleeping well, their libido went down the tubes, their bodies ached, they gained weight, they lost their mojo, really. So sometimes I'd run specialized tests that conventional doctors might not order, and occasionally I'd find something that would solve everything. You know, the lights would go on. But more often than not, the tests failed to uncover anything new because these patients had already seen many excellent healthcare providers before they came to see me. It was clear that there was still a missing piece of the healthcare puzzle. I just couldn't figure out what it was. So I decided to do something radical. I changed my intake form, you know, the paperwork that you fill out when you come in to see the doctor, and I came up with some very different questions than what you've probably been used to being asked by your doctor. I'd certainly never seen anything like these questions before, either as a doctor or as a patient. So I want you to listen carefully to the questions that I asked my patients, because these are the questions that I want you to ask yourself throughout the course of our time together and for the rest of your life. So if you could break any rule without consequences, what rule would you break? Are you in a romantic relationship? And if so, are you happy? Do you feel like you're in touch with your life purpose? Do you feel stressed about money? Do you feel spiritually connected? And the two big doozies, these really made the difference for me. If your health condition had a message to deliver to you, what would it say? Here's the mother lode. What does your body need in order to heal? When I first started asking this last question, I thought my patients would give me treatment intuitions like, you know, I think I'll skip that drug and try this supplement instead. That's not what they said. They said things like, I need to leave my toxic relationship. It's time to quit my job. I need to finally forgive my father. I need to write my novel. So I said, well, you just wrote your own prescription. Go do it. And most of them would say, well, I can't do that. That would be crazy. But a few of my patients got really brave, and they started doing exactly what they had prescribed for themselves, and they started experiencing these unexpected remissions. All of a sudden, their health conditions were going away without medical treatment. In our time together, I'm going to show you how you can make your own diagnosis, write your own prescription, and optimize your chance of being cured from any health conditions that might plague you. And this doesn't just apply to sick people. Even if you're perfectly healthy right now, I'll be teaching you how you might prevent life-threatening illnesses like cancer and heart disease. So I'm here today to share tools that will have immediate effects on the state of your health. you'll learn how to implement these right away so you can get quick results. From what you learn here now, I want you to be able to ask this question: what does my body need in order to heal? And really hear your body. Even if you're not sick, what does your body need in order to be optimally healthy? So be prepared to hear different health advice than you've heard from a doctor before, but I can assure you that this advice works. My own practice and the deep medical research that I did for my book, Mind Over Medicine, Scientific Proof That You Can Heal Yourself, offers solid proof. So please, stay with us. But first, let's take a little survey. How many of you feel like you're at the top of your health game? Raise your hands. Oh, come on! Not one of you? Usually I get at least one brave person. How many of you have tried dieting? It's a lot. How many of you have joined a gym? Worked with a personal trainer? Been to a spa? All right, these are all fantastic health behaviors. But what I want to suggest to you today is that these health behaviors are not enough to keep you healthy. Now, this might sound radical coming from a physician, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that caring for your body in these ways may be the least important part of your health. But that one organ in your body may be more important to your health, and you may be neglecting it. That one organ is your brain, which is the garden of your thoughts. So a little later on, you're going to actually learn how to cultivate a brain that creates healing. Remember that song? Don't worry, be happy. That song was a very, very smart medical prescription. So what I'm going to be teaching you today is more about adding to your healing toolbox than subtracting from it. And it will be most helpful if you're one of those people who has tried Western medicine, but you still don't feel like you're at the top of your health game. Maybe you don't even have a diagnosis, but you just don't feel well. Whether you have a life-threatening illness or more minor symptoms that are just reducing your quality of life, I want you to know something very important. Your body is your business. Say it with me. My body is my business. Yes, it is your business. As I was preparing what I was going to say to you today, I was talking to Michelle Martin, my literary agent for my book, Mind Over Medicine. And Michelle said, before I learned what you taught me, I honestly thought my body was none of my business. I thought my body was my doctor's business. She said, I used to treat my body like my car. You know, when your car breaks down, I take it to the auto mechanic and expect the mechanic to fix it and give it back to me in top shape. She said, I did the same thing with my body. But now I realize that my body is my business. You are responsible for your body. But sadly, many people don't think this way. Most people think they're supposed to just hand their bodies over to their physicians who will fix them, and then they get disappointed when their doctors can't. The reality is that while I might be a doctor, I firmly believe that you know your body better than any doctor. Sure, as a physician, I went to school for 12 years, ostensibly so that I could learn to know your body better than you do. And honestly, it's kind of a narcissistic wound for doctors to think that you might know your body better than we do. We doctors like to think you need us and you're dependent on us, that we have skill sets that you may need, and we do. But even still, you have more power over the outcome of your health than you may realize, and a remarkable patient named Stomatis Moritis proved this. Stomatis Moritis was a Greek war veteran who was sent to the United States in the 1940s for treatment of a combat mangled arm. He got work in manual labor, and he married a Greek-American woman, settled down, and then one day he was at work, and he started getting short of breath, so he went to the doctor, and his doctor diagnosed him with terminal lung cancer, and they told him he only had 9 months to live. He was offered aggressive treatment, but after 9 doctors assured him that it wouldn't save his life, he decided to save his money and decline treatment, and he and his wife decided to move back to Ikaria, a small island in Greece where he had grown up. He thought that way he could be buried with his ancestors in a graveyard overlooking the Aegean Sea. So he and his wife moved into a small house on a vineyard where he expected he'd probably die soon. And while he prepared to die, he reconnected with his faith, started going to the old church that he used to go to. His friends got word that Stomatis was back in town, and they started showing up with bottles of wine and books and board games to entertain him. He figured, hey, if I'm going to die, I might as well die happy. So he even planted vegetables in a garden, not really expecting that he'd be around to harvest them, but he thought it would be great for his wife to be able to harvest them later. So 9 months passed, and not only did he not die, he was actually feeling better than ever. So he harvested the vegetables, and he even started working in the untended vineyard. So 45 years later, Stamatis just celebrated his 98th birthday on New Year's Day. At one point, 25 years after his diagnosis, Stamatis went back to the United States to ask those doctors, so what happened to me? Apparently, his doctors were all dead. Stamatis could be you. You too could experience an unexpected remission. Your health condition could completely disappear. What you're going to learn is that what happened to Stamatis wasn't a fluke. There's a scientific reason Stamatis is now very healthy at the age of 98. And I think you'll be delighted to learn what that science is. So just to prove to you that you don't need to be a Greek expatriate to have this kind of experience, let me share with you the story of Marla, one of my patients from Marin County. Marla was your stereotypical Marin County resident. She did everything right when it came to health. She was a vegetarian, she exercised with yoga, she took supplements, she didn't drink or smoke, but she still had debilitating chronic conditions. When I read her patient intake form and probed into Marla's personal life, I found out that Marla was in an abusive marriage. Her husband didn't support her passion for art, so she wasn't painting. She was exhausted from caring for her aging, sick mother who lived in her home. I had this sense that Marla's body was never going to get well until she healed these other aspects of her life. And with all those negative emotions filling her mind, no vegetable, supplement, exercise program, or drug was going to be strong enough to counteract the harmful health effects of chronic stress on her body. But after sharing with Marla my thoughts about the real reason that her body was suffering, I asked her the big question: what does your body need in order to heal? And Marla said, I need to move to Santa Fe. And I said, Santa Fe? Why Santa Fe? Marla said, well, I don't know, but I have this vacation home in Santa Fe, and whenever I go there, all of my symptoms disappear. So I encouraged Marla to listen to her inner wisdom. She called me a year later. She had moved to Santa Fe. She had moved her mother into a retirement community nearby. She had taken the risk to divorce her husband. She enrolled in art school. And she formed a new community of friends, mostly artists. All of her symptoms had magically disappeared within 3 months of her move. Now, you don't have to wait until you get a scary diagnosis to write the prescription for yourself the way Stamatis and Marla did. You can make this a daily practice, starting now. So for the next 30 days, I want you to ask yourself every day, what does my body need in order to heal? I want you to choose at least one thing every day that you can do to doctor yourself. So we're going to learn some of these strategies coming up in this program about how you can do this for yourself. Hearing stories of people like Stamatis and Marla may leave you feeling skeptical, and I just want you to know I can totally relate. My father was a very conventional physician who made fun of anything he called woo-woo. I trained at ivory tower institutions like Duke and Northwestern, and I spent 8 years practicing in a very no-nonsense medical practice where I viewed all things alternative with skepticism. Mind-body medicine wasn't even on my radar, and if it had been, I'd have said that the idea that the mind could heal the body was, at best, wishful thinking, and at worst, good old-fashioned snake oil selling quackery. But the evidence is bulletproof. There is no question that spontaneous remissions like those experienced by Stamatis happen, and I now have no doubt that a combination of positive belief and the support of the right healthcare providers and a proactive approach on the part of the patient can transform the body in ways scientists are only just now beginning to understand. To try to explain what was happening to patients like Stamatis and Marla, I dug deep into the medical literature to try to find physiological explanations for what might be happening. That's when I came across the Spontaneous Remission Project, a database compiled by the Institute of Noetic Sciences. This project includes more than 3,500 case studies from the medical literature of patients with seemingly incurable diseases that went away either without medical intervention or with intervention believed to be inadequate to result in cure. Documented in the medical literature are stage 4 cancers that disappeared. There's an HIV-positive patient who became HIV negative, heart disease patients who got better, kidney failure patient whose kidneys started functioning. But the case studies of spontaneous remissions that I found in the medical literature don't just include life-threatening illnesses. They also include the kinds of minor chronic diseases that many of you may suffer from, such as allergies, high blood pressure, diabetes, skin disorders, gastrointestinal disorders, chronic pain, and thyroid disease. Reading these case studies really confused me. Not only was I a skeptical physician, I was also a very skeptical patient. By the time I was 33 years old, I had been diagnosed with a whole litany of health conditions that my doctors told me were incurable. But then when I started reading about people like stomatists who experienced spontaneous remissions, and when I asked myself what my body needed in order to heal, and then when I was brave enough to put into action the prescription that I wrote for myself, my illnesses started to get better. I wound up quitting my job as a doctor, which was really scary. I moved to the country. I started working on my relationships, eliminating toxic relationships from my life, and I made a whole series of life changes that I've documented in Mind Over Medicine. And now I'm down to half the dose of one of my medications. It was a big deal for me. It all starts, though, with shifting your beliefs. It's like the story of the 4-minute mile. So exercise physiologists once believed that the human body was incapable of running a mile in less than 4 minutes, and nobody ever had. Then, in 1954, Roger Bannister ran a mile in 59 seconds. Suddenly, the worldwide belief that running a sub-4-minute mile was physiologically impossible disappeared. For me, that's how reading the Spontaneous Remission Project started to change my beliefs. I found that if I could find even one case study of someone with my illness who had a spontaneous remission, that meant it might be possible for me. And the same is true for you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to use your online search engine to search for the Spontaneous Remission Project. If you can find even one case study of someone with your diagnosis who was cured, then you have proof that your disease is not incurable. You might think spontaneous remissions like this are just good luck, but spontaneous remission stories like this are not a fluke. According to researchers like Dr. Kelly Turner, who studied at Harvard and UC Berkeley, patients like stomatitis neuritis didn't just get lucky. Dr. Turner studied stage 4 cancer patients who experienced spontaneous remissions, and she found that people who experienced remissions from seemingly incurable diseases were extremely proactive about fighting their cancers. Dr. Turner argues that we should be calling them radical remissions rather than spontaneous remissions, because calling them spontaneous implies that it's some sort of accident, that these people just got lucky. But she found that patients who experienced spontaneous remissions were engaging in 6 common health behaviors, and only 2 of these were the sorts of behaviors that a forward-thinking doctor might recommend. One is changing your diet, so including more whole vegetables, fruits, grains, beans, eliminating meat, sugar, dairy, refined grains. The other is taking herbs or vitamins that these patients believed would help them fight the cancer. Now remember, your body is your business, and you too can be proactive about optimizing your body's chance for a positive health outcome. So I want to be very clear that when I tell you stories about patients like stomatitis or Marla, I'm not suggesting that you ditch Western medicine. A few years back, my husband Matt cut 2 fingers off his left hand with a table saw. Now, thank God for Dr. Jonathan Jones, who painstakingly spent 8 hours in the operating room sewing together under a microscope every artery, nerve, and bone in Matt's fingers, so he has 10 fingers today. As much as I believe in the body's ability to repair itself from many chronic diseases, honestly, there's no amount of mind-body medicine that would have put those fingers back on. So keep in mind that when I'm telling you stories about people like stomatitis and Marla, I'm talking about patients for whom Western medicine had no simple cure. So while I'm not suggesting that you skip Western medicine, I do want you to realize that your body is your business, because you are the gatekeeper of your mind. You are responsible for your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings, which are critical when it comes to your health. Now, the scientific data proves that your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings affect the physiology of your body more profoundly than you may realize. Now, I get that that's a big statement. But think of it this way. You wouldn't take a pill with a skull and crossbones on it, right? But I want you to understand that every negative thought that you have is poison.